Here is what most people have wrong before they even start. A private wealth advisor is not someone who shows up on day one with a corner office and a roster of millionaires waiting to sign. That version exists, it is real, but it is not where this begins. This begins at the moment a young advisor passes the Series 65 and walks into a branch with a phone, a list, and no clients. And if they survive that first year and climb the ladder correctly, they end somewhere most people in finance cannot picture from where they are standing right now. Let's be precise about what Level 1 actually is. It is not wealth management yet. It is the beginning of the survival problem. Below this rung, a college degree and a smile are enough to get hired. At entry level, the complexity starts to outpace the training. You have a script you do not believe in. You have a quota you cannot meet. You have a compliance manual that your firm handed you, and which may or may not reflect what your manager actually wants you to do. You are not an advisor. You are someone whose job has become a phone-based endurance test that you are not qualified to do and do not have time to do correctly. That is Level 1, the junior associate. At roughly $55,000 to $75,000 in base salary, you become eligible for what the industry calls a training program. The word training means you are sharing the desk with other rookies. You are not the only hire. You are one of dozens, sometimes one of hundreds depending on the firm. What you are buying with your time is access to a brand that you could not build alone. Cold call lists, basic CRM access, a senior advisor's leftover prospects, compliance oversight, a starter book of accounts under $250,000 that the firm does not want to service directly, the framework of a career without the actual career. The difference between a Morgan Stanley training experience and something closer to a Merrill Lynch style platform is worth understanding. Morgan at this level is primarily a production relationship with mentorship layered on top. The dialer is central, the manager is sophisticated, the pressure is real. But the model is built around generating revenue. Merrill-style platforms, and there are several firms operating in this tradition, orient around the team-based pod model. Junior support, senior production, planning depth. The cold calling is one component, not the entire frame. Neither is better in the abstract. They are different orientations, and neither one, regardless of the logo on the door, is a career in the full sense. A brand name is not a book. A book is an infrastructure. You are renting a seat in someone else's office. That is what Level 1 is. What daily life feels like at Level 1 is this. You are still the dialer. You still make every call. You still sit at the desk and read from approved language. The difference is that you now have managers feeding you better lists before you dial. A monthly scorecard. You can actually read a pipeline report in real time instead of a surprise at quarter end. A document that says, here is what your production looks like if you keep this pace, and here is whether it matches what your firm actually wants. You receive more rejection, you attend more meetings, you answer questions you did not know you needed to have answers to. It is not glamorous, it is grinding. The annual income at this level ranges from roughly $55,000 to $90,000 with bonuses tied to gathered assets, typically rewarded at 5 to 10 basis points of new money raised. You will not see most of that bonus until year 2. It is deferred. That is the part you have to decide how you feel about. The trade-off is standardization. You are one rookie among many. The pitch is not yours. The model portfolio has no customization at all. The calendar runs on someone else's clock. You have less autonomy than you think you do. Not because anyone is cruel, because your day lives inside a system that also holds other rookies' days. And systems have metrics, and metrics have rankings. You accepted this the moment you signed the offer letter. Most people do not think about it until later. Level 2 is $30 million in assets under management. This is where the financial advisor career becomes viable. The financial advisor, sometimes called the producer or the relationship manager, is not a title. It is an arrangement. You hire or retain a set of relationships, a few business owners, a handful of retirees, a doctor or two, a divorcee with a settlement, and a single coordination layer whose job is to make all of them feel like you work only for them. The coordination layer is either a client service associate, a junior partner, or in some cases, a single trusted assistant who manages the calendar. The book is yours. The infrastructure is still shared with the firm's other producers, but the agenda is yours. What this advisor actually does is specific. It runs a planning and review calendar for the year. It manages the household stack, the joint account, the IRA, the 529, the trust account if there is one. It tracks performance. It coordinates the annual review, which at this level is no longer a phone call before tax day. It is a structured meeting with an agenda and follow-up items and sometimes a planning software output. It builds the referral pipeline if the advisor wants one. It documents the client's investment policy in a form that survives a market drop. Daily life at level 2 looks like more meetings and more process. You have weekly review blocks. You have a CRM that pings you. You have a shared calendar for client birthdays and RMD deadlines. Your assistant needs to be trained. Your branch manager, if involved, needs to agree to the structure. There are decisions that used to take an afternoon that now take 3 weeks because compliance and the client and a CPA need to weigh in. This is not inefficiency. This is service, but it feels like inefficiency until you have done it long enough to feel what it prevents. The annual income at level 2 runs from $200,000 to $450,000 depending on grid payout and book composition, trail commissions, planning fees, occasional transactional revenue, and the firm's deferred comp. Here is a trade-off that nobody explains clearly enough. The more you professionalize your practice, the more you turn your day into a calendar. There is a decision latency that did not exist before. There is a spouse who needs to understand why you take calls at dinner and may not want to. There is data, significant personal, multi-generational client data flowing through systems and inboxes and portals. The freedom you assumed you had at level 1 is already partially gone at level 2. Not because anyone took it, because you traded it incrementally for revenue. That trade has real value. It also has a real cost. The ladder goes up. The price of climbing it is not only hours. At $250 million in assets, the conversation about being a producer ends. You are no longer dialing for prospects. You are turning them away. The senior advisor, the true vice president level, begins here. Not because $250 million is a magic number, because at $250 million, the cost of saying no to a small client becomes rational relative to the revenue you are managing. Below this threshold, the math does not work. Above it, the math changes. You are no longer weighing whether you can afford a junior. You are weighing whether you can afford not to have one. Level 3, approximately $250 million in AUM. The core hires are 3, a junior advisor who owns the smaller households, the planning meetings, and the day-to-day client requests. A client service associate who handles paperwork, transfers, distributions, and anything that touches operations. A planner or analyst who runs the financial planning function, manages the software stack, and looks for what the industry calls planning alpha, the structural value that comes not from picking better funds, but from better tax location and withdrawal sequencing. These 3 people cost somewhere between $200,000 and $350,000 per year in total compensation, depending on market experience and the city where the practice sits. You will add a marketing coordinator and a part-time compliance liaison. You will add a scheduling system that runs the calendar for all of them and for you. The annual revenue for a functional senior practice at this level sits between $2 million and $3.5 million per year before firm splits. What the practice actually does is different in kind, not just in scale from what came before. The planning is proactive now. Client conversations happen in advance. You are not reacting to market moves. You are calling the client before they call you, walking through positioning, withdrawal timing, tax loss harvesting at the household level. The service function is not reactive. It is calendared, required distributions, charitable transfers, gifting strategies, realized gains, all of it coordinated in advance because a single unplanned event can cost more than a quarter of your team's salary in unnecessary tax for the client. Risk management has a personal dimension now. Errors and omissions exposure, cybersecurity for the practice systems and the client's personal data, succession planning for the book itself. These are not hypotheticals. They are line items in the budget. Daily life at level 3 has a cadence, a standing team meeting weekly, a review cycle that produces a consolidated household report across every account, every entity, every outside holding the client will disclose. Staff management, which is to say people management, which is to say that you are now running a small firm and your firm's most important product is you. That is a strange position. It produces a strange gravity. Decisions that once took a phone call now require a memo. You sign off on hires, on vendor agreements, on planning recommendations that your junior has already drafted. You are not removed from the work. You are the governance layer above the people doing it. The trade-off at level 3 is one that the industry does not say aloud in recruiting meetings. Your book has become the client of an enterprise that your name funds. The professionals on the team work for you, but they are also professionals with careers and opinions, and occasionally, agendas. The autonomy you traded incrementally on the way up here is now held inside a practice with an employment roster. Every person who works for you knows more about your clients' lives than most people know about their own families. You manage that risk by paying well, by using non-solicits with teeth, and by hoping that talent retention is strong. You will still lose someone eventually. They will land at another team across town with a copy of your client list in their head. This is the industry. You will have managed around it before it becomes a problem. You hope. Level 4, approximately $1 billion in AUM. The Institutional Advisor Team. The difference between Level 3 and Level 4 is not headcount, it is operating risk. At $1 billion, the team is no longer only managing portfolios, it is running a business. A dedicated investment function, because the book now includes alternatives, private placements, and direct holdings that require diligence, not just allocation. A planning team, because at this scale you are not only doing retirement projections, you are running estate strategy, business sale planning, and concentrated stock disposition for founders who wrote you a check and trusted you with the proceeds. An investment committee with formal governance, model approval, written exception documentation, and a paper trail that would survive a regulatory audit. The build-out costs are real. Senior associate compensation, operations and reporting staff who can handle alternative investment statements with quarterly close cycles. Legal overhead for transaction work because every business sale generates legal fees that are not covered by the firm's general counsel alone. A technology stack that consolidates reporting across managed accounts, brokerage, alternatives, and held-away assets into something a client can actually read. Total annual revenue at Level 4 is between $8 million and $15 million. Some teams at this size run more. Daily life is deals, planning cycles that take 6 to 12 weeks. Client politics, meaning the question of which clients get access to which alternative investments and whether the answer to that question is the same every time. More travel, client visits in 3 states, custodian meetings, annual conferences for every platform in the practice. The team has a rhythm now, and the rhythm is relentless. The trade-off at Level 4 is concentrated relationships and internal power. When one client represents 8% of revenue, you are not diversified. You are exposed, and the people on your team who service that relationship have a connection to it, a professional identity attached to it, and a compensation review connected to its retention. Internal power dynamics in a team at this scale are real, and they are sometimes quiet, and they are occasionally not quiet at all. Level 5, $10 billion and above. The Mega Team or Breakaway RIA Founder. This is where wealth management becomes enterprise management. The practice at this level is running multi-generational planning with outside attorneys, independent trustees, and family councils that may include clients who have never met each other. It is administering its own RIA with a compliance program that reflects the firm's values and also manages its regulatory exposure. It is designing a partnership structure, sometimes called an equity plan, that specifies how decisions get made, who has voice, who has vote, what happens when the partners disagree, and what happens when a next-generation advisor wants out. Edward Jones-style governance mechanisms exist at this level because they were refined at this level. Partner councils, annual partner meetings with structured agendas, education tracks for next-generation associates, not product education first, fiduciary education first. Voting rules that distinguish between firm decisions and investment decisions. Dispute resolution processes that sit outside arbitration. The firm has a brand and media protocol because at $10 billion, the team is a public fact, even if it has never sought to be. The practice manages that exposure the way a corporation manages its communications function deliberately. The cost at Level 5 is the highest fixed overhead the latter produces. Specialized professionals layered on top of full in-house staff. ERISA attorneys, philanthropic strategists, practice management consultants who fly in for the partner retreat and charge accordingly. Security professionals managing both physical and digital threat surfaces. The annual revenue at this level does not have a clean ceiling. What daily life looks like is stewardship as a full-time profession, not for you alone, for your associates, and depending on how the equity is structured for their successors after decisions you make this year. The partner meeting is an event on the calendar that requires preparation, facilitation, and follow-up. The firm metrics, the measures by which the partners evaluate whether the practice is doing what it was built to do, are reviewed formally. The question of who is entitled to what and who decides and how the deciding happens is answered in documents that outlast the people who wrote them. The trade-off at Level 5 is identity. The structure that protects the revenue also shapes the people inside it. Advisors who grow up knowing that a billion-dollar platform exists on their behalf grow up knowing something about themselves that most advisors do not know. What they do with that knowledge is not something any partnership document fully controls. The mega team can produce stewards. It can also produce entitlement or detachment, or people who spend their 30s trying to prove they exist outside the frame of the founder's name. The firm cannot fix this. The firm is the frame which brings you back to the only question that actually matters at the end of this ladder. At what point does advising become enterprise building? And once it becomes enterprise building, are the clients better for it? The answer is not obvious. The answer depends on whether the founder wanted to run an institution and whether the people inside it were asked before the documents were drafted. Some advisors thrive inside structure. Some advisors disappear into it. The mega team is worth building if what you are building is something the clients you serve want to live inside. If the answer to that question is yes, climb. If the answer is uncertain, that uncertainty is worth more of your attention than the next rung ever will.